Hold out your hand. Look at it for a moment. The skin, the veins beneath it, the bones you can feel if you press. Every atom in that hand is older than the Earth itself. The calcium in your bones was forged inside a star that lived and died before our sun existed. The iron in your blood was scattered across space by an explosion so violent it briefly outshone an entire galaxy. You are not just made of the same stuff as stars. You are made of stars that no longer exist. And somehow, after billions of years of traveling through the darkness of space, those atoms found each other, arranged themselves into something impossibly complex, and became a person capable of looking up and wondering where they came from. That is not a metaphor. That is chemistry. That is physics. That is the actual story of what you are. So let's tell it properly. To understand what you're made of, you have to go back further than Earth, further than the sun, all the way back to a universe that had just begun and was, by our standards, almost completely empty. 3 minutes after the Big Bang, the entire universe contained only 2 elements, hydrogen and helium. That was it. That was everything. No carbon, no oxygen, no iron, no calcium, the building blocks of every living thing that has ever existed. None of them were there yet. The universe was full of potential and almost nothing else. For hundreds of millions of years, that gas drifted, cooling. Slowly, gravity began to pull it together, not into planets, not into anything solid, but into vast, collapsing clouds. And inside those clouds, something extraordinary happened. The gas compressed, the pressure rose, the temperature climbed to 10 million degrees, and hydrogen atoms, forced close enough together to overcome the force pushing them apart, began to fuse. A star was born. And with it, for the first time in the history of the universe, something new began to be made. Inside that star, hydrogen fused into helium, helium fused into carbon, carbon into oxygen, oxygen into silicon. The star was not just burning, it was building. Element by element, it was creating things the universe had never contained before. But here is something almost no one knows. Stars have a limit. No matter how large, no matter how hot, every star in the universe hits the same wall. And that wall has a name: iron. A star can fuse elements all the way up to iron, but iron is different. Every element before it, when fused, releases energy. That energy is what keeps the star alive, what pushes outward against the crushing force of its own gravity. But iron does the opposite. Fusing iron consumes energy instead of releasing it. So when a massive star finally builds an iron core, after millions of years of working its way up through the periodic table, something catastrophic happens. The energy stops. And in less than 1 second, a core the size of a city collapses under its own weight. The temperature spikes to 100 billion degrees. The explosion that follows is so violent, it briefly outshines an entire galaxy. And in that explosion, something else happens. Something that matters to you personally. The energy of the collapse is so extreme that it forces iron to fuse further, past the wall, past what the star could ever do while alive. Gold, silver, uranium, iodine, the element your thyroid needs to function right now in your body as you watch this. It was forged in the last second of a dying star's life, and then it was thrown into space. All of it. Everything the star had spent millions of years building, scattered across light years of darkness. That is where your story really begins. For a moment, everything the star ever built was everywhere at once. Gold and carbon and oxygen and iron, all of it moving outward at 10,000 kilometers per second, in every direction, into the dark. And then the darkness swallowed it. For millions of years, nothing. Just atoms drifting through the void. No heat, no light, no direction. The elements that would one day become you, scattered across distances so vast that if you tried to count the miles, the number would be meaningless before you finished saying it. This is the part of your story nobody tells you about. The waiting. Because the universe is not in a hurry. It has never been in a hurry. Slowly, over millions of years, gravity began doing what it always does. Pulling, gathering. The scattered debris of that dead star drifting toward other clouds of gas and dust, mixing with them, enriching them with everything the star had spent its life creating. And in one particular region of one particular galaxy, unremarkable, neither at the center nor at the edge, a cloud began to collapse. It had happened before. It would happen again. But this time, something specific was true about this particular cloud, in this particular place, at this particular moment in cosmic history. It contained iron, and gold, and carbon, and oxygen, and every other element a living thing would eventually need. The collapse took millions of years. The pressure at the center built until, once again, hydrogen began to fuse. A new star ignited. Our star. Around it, the remaining material, everything that hadn't fallen into the star itself, began to flatten, to spin, to clump. Dust particles touching, sticking, growing. Pebbles becoming boulders. Boulders becoming planetesimals. Planetesimals colliding with catastrophic violence, building larger and larger bodies from the wreckage of their collisions. This was not gentle. This was not quiet. The early solar system was a war zone. Bodies the size of planets smashing into each other, merging, shattering, reforming. The violence of creation disguised as destruction, exactly as it had been in the heart of the dying star. And from all of that chaos, one particular body survived intact at one particular distance from the new star, where something remarkable was possible. Liquid water, covering most of the surface of a small rocky planet, sitting in the precise band of temperature where the molecule that makes life possible could exist in its liquid state. For hundreds of millions of years, the water covered everything. And in that water, in the warmth near cracks in the ocean floor where heat from the planet's interior seeped into the sea, something happened that we still don't fully understand. Molecules began assembling themselves. Not randomly, not simply, but with a specific kind of complexity that had never existed before anywhere in the universe we know of. Molecules that could copy themselves, that could carry information, that could make more of themselves from the raw materials around them. The first living thing on Earth was not an animal. It was not a plant. It was barely even a thing. Just a molecule in a warm, dark ocean, doing something no molecule had ever done before. Replicating. That was enough. From that first replication, from that single molecule making one imperfect copy of itself in a warm, ancient ocean, everything followed. Every bacterium, every fish, every forest, every dinosaur that walked the earth, and every bird that descended from them. Every primate that climbed down from the trees and looked up at the night sky and wondered what the lights were. Every human being who ever lived, including you, sitting there, right now, with your hand still outstretched. The calcium in those bones, forged in a star that died before our sun existed. The iron in your blood, scattered across space by an explosion that briefly outshone an entire galaxy. The carbon in every cell of your body, built atom by atom in the nuclear furnace of a star that gave everything it had so that the universe could become more complex than it was before. You are not a passenger in this universe. You are what it has been building toward. Through 14 billion years of hydrogen and gravity and fire and darkness, you are the universe becoming aware of itself. And the hand you're holding out right now, that ordinary, unremarkable hand, is one of the most extraordinary things the cosmos has ever produced. So look at your hand again. Not the way you looked at it at the beginning of this video. Look at it the way you look at something you've just understood for the first time. Every atom in that hand has a history longer than the Earth. You didn't inherit these atoms. You are them, temporarily arranged into something that can think and feel and love and hope. There is a question that serious scientists and philosophers have wrestled with for decades. Why does the universe exist at all? Why is there something rather than nothing? We don't have a complete answer. We may never have one. But there is something we do know. Whatever the universe is, however it began, it produced you. The universe is not just matter and energy following physical laws. It is matter and energy that became curious about itself, that looked inward and outward simultaneously and asked, "What am I?" You are that question being asked. Every time you look up at the stars, every time you feel small beneath them, you are the universe looking at itself and feeling the scale of what it contains. The stars don't wonder about you, but you wonder about them. And that asymmetry, that one-sided awareness, is the most extraordinary fact in the known cosmos. Every joy you have ever felt, every moment of genuine connection, every piece of music that moved you, every sunrise that stopped you in your tracks, every time you loved someone completely, that was the universe experiencing itself through you. That is what you are. So hold out your hand one more time. Look at it the way it deserves to be looked at. Not as something ordinary, but as 14 billion years of the universe learning how to reach out and wonder where it came from.